Hello. Can you guys hear me? Great. We'll just, I
Can you
see
guys
that we're
hear me?
getting
I can't
participants.
hear anything yet.
Okay, I see that we're getting participants signing on, so we're going to give that a few minutes. I'm going to put my camera off for just a moment and we will get started.
And I'm doing a sound check here. Leo, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, I see that it is 12 o'clock noon. I'd like to welcome everybody here today to Corridor Conversations. This is a webinar that we are hosting here at Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. And it is being recorded so that people can watch this later. And I see that we've got about a few people still signing in. So we're going to slowly trickle those folks in and we'll get started in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we have the slide deck available, okay? Okay, great. Can everyone see the slide on the screen? Great, thank you. I am Priscilla Kalugden. I am the Marketing Communications Manager for Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. And with me here today, I have Rob Paget, who is the Managing Director, as well as Leo Sanchez, who is the Deputy Managing Director. And we have prepared a few slides. I will go through what we're going to talk about today, which is, I think the next slide is our agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to that. Let's see. All right. Well, for today's event, all the participant cameras will be turned off. Please use the chat feature if you're having trouble with any listening issues and you can't hear a person online, or if you have any issues at all and have trouble with the transmission. For questions for the panelists, for us, and any comments you'd like to make, please put those in the Q&A. And that's, I see that we have one already, which is great. All of our participants will be muted by default, and we will make the replay available after this event. So with that, I'm going to move on to what our agenda is today. And really, this is a very loose agenda. We really want to go quickly through the slides that we have. And that's because we really want to hear from you and get feedback from our audience today. We are going to cover some topics about current service and ridership, schedule changes and what that process looks like. And you may have heard about our Tap to Ride pilot program. So we'll talk a little bit about that, which is our contactless payment pilot program. And mostly we want to hear from you about whatever is on your mind about the service, questions you might have about programs that we're running or service ideas that we might have in the future. And this is just one step in an array of things that we are doing to make sure that we get feedback from you. Some of you have written into us with our customer comments online on our website, which we do keep updated. We put a lot of work into that, and we do read your comments. So please feel free to drop us lines there, as well as we are on the major social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So if you want to contact us there, you can feel free to follow us there. We try to share out interesting news, and we do try to answer our followers' questions there too. With that, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Oh, and I forgot to mention that now that we've kind of moved on from the depths of the pandemic days, we're going to bring back more frequently our CAPI hour and hopefully have some in-person events on board the train soon, which we used to have prior to the pandemic. And those are always fun events, times for staff to meet with passengers on board, as well as, next year we will do our public workshops for our business plan. And we always eagerly seek out feedback from our riders on our plans for the future. So I'm going to move along here. And with that, I will hand it off to Rob Paget, who's our managing director.
Thanks, Priscilla. And just to reinforce what Priscilla just said, we really value the input that we get from our customers, and some of the big programs we've done at Capital Corridor have come from germs of ideas that have come through either our business planning outreach process or through feedback on our through our portal on the website. So please do reach out to us, and we'll keep our comments today pretty short so we can open it up for questions. And if you have ideas or things you're thinking about or curious about, we are all ears and really look forward to that conversation. And just in case you are not as familiar with our service, I'll just talk a little bit about what that is. We run a 170-mile route, which runs from Auburn, just outside of Sacramento, down through the Bay Area, down to San Jose. We are the only public transportation service that serves this entire market. And with full service, we are 30 trains a day and 22 trains on weekdays. Right now, we are running 24 trains on weekdays, and we are back to full service on weekends. So we're slowly climbing out of that pandemic service level that we've been at for some time. We do rely on extensive connections to transit, not just the Richmond BART connection and the Oakland Coliseum connection, but we have lots of transit services that feed into our route. If you haven't taken advantage of the new transit connection that heads up to South Lake Tahoe from Sacramento, it is a great service. And I know Leo just took that up himself recently. So it really gives you an easy and relatively affordable option to get up to the South Lake Tahoe. We are operated by Amtrak under the management of the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. You know, the next slide. And just talk a little bit before Leo talks about some of the schedule changes and how that works, just to talk a little bit about the key markets that we serve. And one of the great things and also one of the challenging things about our service is that we do have a lot of markets that we serve. Commuters often get a lot of attention, but actually that's really just about half of our service now. We also carry lots of students. If you ever get off at Davis on a Sunday evening, you will watch the train unload, bikes and all. We carry lots of tourists, some folks who are from out of town, some folks that are local. And then we have lots of folks just visiting family and taking on other activities up and down the corridor. And within the commuter markets, you can see all of the places that we serve. And we are obviously serving the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco, down to San Jose and Santa Clara. Those have long been big markets, but also places like Martinez. We have a lot of people that commute there. We have a lot of people that commute to Davis and to downtown Sacramento. Through the course of the pandemic, we have done our best to serve all of these markets as we can. And again, we appreciate all your feedback. I know some of you have been super excited about changes we make, and sometimes I get a thanks and a pat on the back and a note, and then at the same time I'm getting an email from someone who's really upset about a change. So know that we really are listening, and we appreciate all that feedback. If you can go to the next slide, please. So I wanted just to touch on ridership. So as you know, we had, like all transportation services, a real drop off in ridership. We were carrying about 1.8 million riders in all of 2019. That dropped off by 95% just as the pandemic started. And you can see here the numbers. And what I want you to take away from this is the rapid pace at which we're gaining ridership. While our numbers are still below where they were pre-pandemic, we are quite confident that we are going to see a return to full service. We do have constraints on equipment, which we've talked about in a lot of different forums. We're working on that. And I was on the train just this week, and obviously it's getting crowded again. So we may have to go again and talk about, you probably remember pre-COVID, we talked about one ticket, one seat, and we're going to have to get back to that again. So if you're riding and you see folks walking up and down, make sure you move your bag and make some space. We certainly want to make sure everybody joins us. You can go to the next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over to Leo, who's going to talk a little bit about schedule changing. And maybe Leo, if you could also touch a little bit on this issue of the length of trains and how we're trying to handle some of the ridership changes we're seeing as you talk through that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I just glanced at one of the comments, and somebody was asking or was pointing out about the consist length. And that is one of the challenges. We are limited on equipment. And so the consist, for the most part, the trains that you'll see out there, Capital Corridor trains, will have 4 cars and a locomotive. So that is a shorter consist than we, on average, were running about 5 cars. Pre-pandemic, we had some that were also 4 sometimes, and then some that we were able to accommodate a 6th car. But that is one of the constraints that we have today. And so we're trying to do the most that we can to utilize the equipment that we have and target those trains that we know are getting busy. That has been the practice, I think, now for 3 or 4 months now, where we are actively looking at what the schedule turns look like on Wednesdays, and then planning directly with Amtrak and saying, hey, we see that 538 and 527 have been really busy. Let's make sure that we at least add a single car. If we can't add 2 cars, at least let's add a single car to that consist or to those consists, to ensure that we have at least enough room to carry the passengers that we are expecting today. So I just wanted to touch on that before I jumped on the schedule planning. And so just in terms of schedule planning, we have 2 slides here that we'll share. And this has been, I think, a topic of great interest for a lot of people. I know a few on here that I've seen on the attendee list generally will offer up feedback that they think could improve the service, and then also just point out some things that maybe they see that aren't working well. And we appreciate all the feedback that we get. And one of the things that I'll say is that, Rob highlighted that we have a 170-mile corridor, and that 170-mile corridor, a couple miles or so are owned by Caltrain, and so they are essentially our host railroad, but the rest of it is entirely Union Pacific. So as we're working through this, just bear in mind, and you'll see that in the next slide, but that we are at the mercy of a lot of different stakeholders that we engage with regularly as we're working through it. So it's not a linear path. There are multiple parties that we need to work with together to make that happen. So in terms of schedule planning, high level, some of the objectives that we actively seek out is we're looking to maximize markets and improve the service to our customers. We want to have a service that's predictable, that's reliable, that has convenient patterns that you all can enjoy. one of the things that we did before the pandemic started and then was implemented right around the start of the pandemic was it's called a pulse pattern schedule, but essentially it's a regularly served schedule that is essentially every hour on the hour. That's essentially what you see on most commuter train operators, like for example, BART and Caltrain. And so that gives us a level of predictability to the riders that they're able to know when to expect the train. So that is a nice feature, but it's challenging because of the numerous stakeholders that we are coordinating with, and also transit partners. And then the last few things on here for objectives are, we want to make sure we also have hours of operation that are serving your needs, right? So if you're needing to get to Sacramento at a particular time in the morning, we want to be able to at least serve the bulk of riders that are needing to do that. And just like Rob mentioned, unfortunately, we are limited in the equipment. We are limited in the slots that we have, so we can't accommodate everyone. But we try to do the best we can to look at what is available to us, and then what can we provide to the riding public. And then the last one here, which is an important one to note, because I think that everyone that uses transit, that uses intercity rail, has heard a lot of the financial challenges that we're all dealing with, and a lot of it is still being felt, specifically in the Bay Area, where we have experienced, along with our transit partners, some of the biggest declines in ridership. And so we're still climbing out of that. We're just beyond the 50% mark compared to pre-pandemic service, so we have a long way to go. And so that is a constraint that we have to be mindful of. And this is particularly true for our connecting bus service. A route that continues to just escalate in cost is our Emeryville to San Francisco route. That's a important market that we serve, but it is a challenging one financially. And then we have a lot of other connecting bus services. I know I saw a couple of comments on the chat, one about maybe adding more service to South Lake Tahoe. And on the one side, we would love to be able to add as much service as we can, but we also have to be mindful of our financial constraints. And as things make sense, we do add those. One thing that I'll point out to that we've had actually a great success story was in our Reno bus connection. We actually were seeing that we were at capacity. We were able to justify just with the return on our revenue, the added bus service. So we were able to add another bus connection there. And similarly, we would love to do the same thing for South Lake Tahoe as we get to that point. And then so in terms of considerations and some things that we use as inputs for our schedule planning, we want to make sure that our service also works with the regional partners, right? So what good is a train service if you're not getting to where you need to get to at the time that you're able to be picked up? So we do this regularly with BART. They work on their schedule, and they generally send it to us months in advance of a change. And usually they're making some minor adjustments, so that it's nothing catastrophic that usually usually limits us. So they do a great job in keeping us in mind. And we do the same thing for some of the connecting bus services or the feeder bus services, and also other regional transit connections. And then lastly, and a really important one, I started by just talking about the fact that our host railroads are Union Pacific primarily, and then also Caltrain, but we also have other operational constraints. We have a limited number of equipment. We have to be mindful of how we turn that equipment. Today we're using 8 consists. Pre-pandemic, we actually had 9 consists. Then we also have staff work rules, right? We just can't have train operators running at all hours of the day. They have mandatory hours of safety, safety train of operation, and right, so they're not able to just continue running, which is actually a great safety thing to keep in mind of. And then there are other service conflicts, right? We have other train operators that are using the same infrastructure that we're using. So of course the freight use the lines, but in the South Bay, really, we have numerous operators. We have ACE, we have Caltrain, and we have San Joaquin's that overlap on some of our service. So there are a lot of variables to keep in mind as we work to improve and change the schedule. And I think that that's about all. I'll leave it for now. You can see some of the other constraints there, and we'll get into just the diagram, the flow chart, so you guys can see what that path looks like. So usually we'll start by just identifying that, hey, we need to make an improved schedule, and that's an ongoing thing. So that's almost happening every couple of years. We finish one, and as we're finishing one, we're already starting to think about the inputs for the next one. So this is the staff initiating that. And we're taking in everything from your feedback to what are the trains that we're trying to better improve based on the data that we're seeing. What are some of the operational constraints, which I highlighted those. And then we take all of that information and we process it, and we start thinking high level, what do we want to do with the service? We take that, then we work directly with a consultant that can help us model the schedule. We look at a lot of different patterns, a lot of different things that we can do to serve. And in the end, we come out with the schedule option that might work, that we think that can work for also our partner operators. And we can show different iterations with Amtrak, with ACE, with San Joaquin's and Caltrain, and then get their blessing to say, hey, yeah, this works, or you know what, we might have to make an adjustment here for our train. And so we make concessions with our partner agencies as well that might be trade-offs and may prevent them from running the ideal service that they want to run, or the same on our end. Then we take that, we submit it to Amtrak. Amtrak takes that schedule. They make sure that the schedule actually functions the way that we're thinking that it's going to function based on the analysis that our consultants provide. Once that happens, they take that and they say, yes, this is going to work, or no, it's not going to work. And they can make recommendations on how we can make this actually work. If it works, this goes on to UP and Caltrain for their approval. They actually do another they call it a stress test of the schedule. And essentially what they're doing is they're analyzing the schedule based on the variables that they know that we might not be privy to, and say, yes, this can work and this can be a great schedule, or you know what, no, there's some challenges here because maybe we have single track, maybe we have some freight operations that function in a particular route, or maybe there's some added train service that Caltrain is trying to bring on that limits our ability to do certain things. And so they might make those recommendations, and it'll follow this iterative process. But ultimately, we get to this point that, yes, they approve it, and then that finally makes its way to Amtrak, and then they make all the appropriate updates on the schedule and update that on the web and on the app. And we can pause there, Rob, and maybe see if we have people that specifically have questions leading up to this point. This is the last for the process schedule change.
Just to chime in, Leo, once all that schedule is finalized, Leo mentions how Amtrak updates their schedule on the web and on their app, but then CCJPA staff also takes that information, and we feed this information and put it into GTFS format for upload onto Google and Google Transit, and we have to take the finalized schedule and piece it out to make the PDF that you see that's downloadable on our website that I know many people use. So there's a lot of actions that need to happen after all of this stuff on the flow chart happens too. So I don't know, Leo, maybe you want to talk a little bit about like the time frame for some of this.
Yeah, that's a good point. And thanks, Priscilla, for adding that. I think one thing that I want to be mindful of everybody is that this is really like a simplistic view of our process, right? So there's a lot of other things that happen. There's calls that are being made to partners to see, hey, can we move this? Can this happen? And so there's a lot of other things that happen in this, and so it's complicated and it's challenging. Generally, a schedule change starting to end, I think about the quickest that we can usually move is about a year. So it is a lengthy process. And, maybe in a future conversation, I can share what steps are, can take what, but I think the last schedule change that we did took about a year and a half, and we were making some big changes, right? So that just extended the amount of time that it took to really be able to iron out the schedule that we wanted.
Yeah, and maybe I can add to that, Leo. There's really different levels. So if you look back in history, we've kept our schedule fairly stable and not had a lot of changes. The changes that we've done in recent years are in part due to the COVID pandemic, and we've been trying our best to adapt to ridership shifts and just the limit of equipment and service. So this, the last 3 years are definitely atypical. So any kind of big schedule change, as Leo was describing, takes an extended period of time. We do, though, sometimes have a situation where maybe they've slowed the track speed at a location and we need to add a couple of minutes here or there to the schedule. We can make smaller adjustments like that where we have some sort of a reliability issue. We can make those a little bit faster, but anything that's complex in nature is going to take a whole lot of time with a lot of stakeholders engaged.
Great, thank you. Should I move on to the next slide?
Yeah,
Okay, great. I want to make sure that we have time to hear from our writers too.
and here I'll touch on this one real quick, and Rob or Priscilla, if you two want to add anything, feel free to do so. We've been working on this Tap to Ride pilot program that is being led by the state with the California Integrated Travel Program. And our version of this is Tap to Ride, so that's unique to Capital Corridor. And this has literally been one of those all hands on deck projects that virtually everyone on the CCJPA staff is touching, is working on at some level. And what this program has done is that it's currently in the pilot phase, and it's enabling us to have the ability to have a contactless payment system that you can just get your credit card out, tap on, as you see on the reader there, tap off when you get off at your journey, and actually be able to do things from, reducing your fare capping on a weekly basis. So you're able to get to your cap on the weekly basis. We want to be able to do this. Our long-term goal is to really do this with equity in mind and be able to offer other programs and discounts that we're not really able to do under the current Amtrak ticketing program. So it is a very rigid and difficult to use system that doesn't give us a lot of flexibility. Whereas here we're now actually collecting revenue, which is the first time we've ever done that directly, and we're also being able to use ridership information to just be able to offer better programs. So this is available right now as a pilot program. Right now we have about 100 participants, maybe more. And the thought is that as we work out the details here with the pilot, we want to open it up to the general public. Right now, we only have the devices on the cap cars. As we're working through this, the plan is to have the reader devices on every car and potentially also at the station, at every station, just to make the process seamless. And you can see some of the current fare discounts on the right hand side. So you actually have $1 off price on every one-way 10 ride pass. That's what it's calculated today. So if you just look at Oakland to Sacramento, for example, you're paying $18 instead of the 29 through the web or the app. And so after you do 6 one-way trips, that's actually when you cap right now on a weekly basis. So for those of you that are commuters or ride the service a lot, this is a great way to reach your cap. And actually, if you don't think that the whole month you're going to be busy and you're not committed to the monthly ride pass that is offered through the Amtrak website, here it's week by week. So it's a great way to use our service. And our goal is really to expand it beyond just our rail service, is to go beyond and also have some of the transit regional buses. And really this is a statewide program. So eventually what I envision, I took a train trip down to San Jose and then took a bus with Santa Cruz Metro down to Santa Cruz. And really what we will eventually be able to do is have those readers on the buses and just tap on, tap off as you're going in your journey, instead of having to buy the full ticket on our website, or maybe you're not able to buy the other segment because it's a transit bus connection, and there's a lot of other nuances to using some of the bus connections.
Yeah, and I'll just add, and I've been out using my credit card and testing the service. It is really, really easy to do this, and it allows you to do it without having to, once you register, your card's registered, so we know who you are when you ride. We're working through the bugs. I mean, you might get on there and the reader might not work perfectly, but the conductors know to work with you on that. So if you're a regular rider, it would be great, especially if you're calling in today, you probably care a lot about Capital Corridor service. So if you're a regular rider, we do still have space on the pilot to sign up, and I'd encourage you to do that. And know if you have problems, you can send in a request and they'll fix something, like, I didn't tap off, for example, and if you do something like that, you send in an email and it can be corrected. And I don't know if Priscilla is super active in organizing this, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on that front, Priscilla.
I didn't have too much to add, other than, that it is a really great discount for participating in Tap to Ride, and that's because, we'll be picking your brain and getting your feedback about how the program is working. It's not perfect; it's a pilot, so we're just starting here. We're hoping to build as much as we can from this point, because I think the ease and the convenience and flexibility is really, really great. So, and as you can see, for people who ride frequently, the fare capping is super awesome. So hopefully if it doesn't work for you exactly, maybe you can tell your friends.
Yeah, and Luke, Luke had the comment about how do the conductors know that you paid. So the way it works is they carry around an Android device, and they'll hold your card up to that Android device, and they're able to tell that you tapped on. So that's how it's currently working. And they've had some trouble with that Android device, but if you've tapped on, they'll work with you on that. So we're getting to a point where they see these taps more frequently and are pretty comfortable with it. And again, it's only on the cab car too, by the way. That's the thing to remember.
Right. And right now, all the participants, are able to provide us feedback with any nuances or odd situations that you're experiencing that can help us improve the pilot program. So we value the feedback. And I saw one that is related to the comment that I was making. I guess somebody was asking about senior discounts and other type of discounts like that. I mean, right now, the state is taking the lead on that effort to be able to have a way that we have already this information through the DMV, right? They know your age, they know if you have a disability, they know potentially your military status. So all those variables that today we're not able to really provide upfront discounts. The goal is to have that built in and to be able to have that information so that as you're tapping on, we can automatically say, oh, this is a senior, let's give them a discount, and without having to go through great lengths of providing that. And we can move on. I think I don't know if we have another slide. Yeah, we're over to the question and answer session, so we can open it up at this point. We'll hand it over to Priscilla.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read out the questions that have come in. Let's see, I think we talked a little bit about the schedule change process already. One question has come in about when the fall date. Did you guys talk about that?
I can touch on that. That's a good question, and I appreciate the enthusiasm for having to going back to full service. I want that as much as the next person. And really the three things that are limiting our ability right now to expand the service are three things, right? We have equipment, which that is the number one challenge that we have. We're waiting for the Siemens venture cars to be deployed on the San Joaquin route. Once that happens, and that right now looks like the most recent information that I have is that will likely happen in the fall, towards the end of the year. So it's not likely that we really will have added cars that will be freed up from the San Joaquin service that can make their way over to our service and our partners down in Southern California at Losan. Once that equipment is available, though, that will fulfill at least that requirement that we need to have the equipment in order to add more service. Otherwise, we just don't have the physical equipment to do anything. The other things that limit our ability to do that is, ridership in and of itself is still significantly lower to where we need it to be. And in part, it's because we really relied heavily on ticket revenue to be able to fund our service, right? So the funding constraint is one that we're working through. We do have, we talked during the last board meeting about a fiscal cliff that we're facing. So we have some real financial challenges that we need to make sure that we address and we're mindful of before adding some additional cost to the service. So that's another constraint. And then the last one, and one that ebbs and flows, but is still there, is the staffing constraint. So we still also have some staffing challenges that might limit our ability to add service. And that's something that we're working directly with Amtrak to make sure that they have the staffing that they need to run our service. So that's the main challenge there. In terms of the broader schedule change, right? So that's just adding service. And in terms of making a schedule change, we started to brainstorm and start thinking about what are some of the things that we want for the next schedule change. So we're early stages on that, and that will likely take place probably middle to the end of next year. Just because of the lead time that it takes to do that. And we want to just be mindful of any changes that we make, especially if we don't have the ability to increase service. So we don't want it to be too disruptive if we're not able to provide the full pre-pandemic service.
Hey, Priscilla, I saw there are a couple of questions about projects. I know we put on the end that one.
Yeah, I was going to just go through the questions in order, if you don't mind. So
please.
There's a question here about with regards to Placer County, and the riders have previously expressed concerns about the morning westbound departures. Will the next schedule change address those concerns about the morning departure time?
Yeah, we have heard that. I mean, what I'll say maybe as the most important thing is we're really close on getting the full funding package to do the Sacramento to Roseville third track project, which will allow us to go to 3 round trips to Roseville. And that's the real answer up to Placer County, is we need more service. We are watching, we've done some changes that allow now folks to go on weekdays all the way down to San Jose. We have very mixed opinions about the current schedule. We tried to balance the desire of folks to go to, say, the Sacramento Davis area with those who are going to the Bay Area. And I will just say, I don't think anybody loves the current schedule, but we are looking at that, and that will be part of what we look at when we're doing a schedule changes is how can we thread the needle and serve with just that single train until we are up to more service out to Roseville, which is coming, by the way. We're working hard on that.
And I think the second part of that question is just, if for Placer County, if there's a possibility of adding additional throughway buses to help with that connection. I mean, obviously the Sac Roseville is in the future, but I think that there's questions about what will be done in the nearer term.
Yeah, we looked at there's 2 possibilities for bus connections. One is a through service, and the one challenge we're having with the through service is the cost escalation for those throughway bus services in general has escalated extremely rapidly during the pandemic, and so we're trying to be very judicious about how we add those services. So one of the things that we're trying hard to do, this is what we did with El Dorado Transit, is look for opportunities where we can partner with local transit agencies and have those transit agencies connect with us and really give you lots of options. So we're going to be looking at both of those possibilities in the Placer County, throughway bus service, which is really limited more to our customers, or some sort of a shared service where either a Capital Corridor customer could connect to Roseville Transit or Placer County Transit or whatever, or if you're just a local customer, you could also take that same bus. That's the way we need to deliver transportation services, given the reality of the fiscal situation, is make sure we're not running duplicate services in the same place. So yes, all that's going to be on the table.
Thank you. And then the next question is, is there a possibility of increasing throughway service to South Lake Tahoe, since there's only one per day right now? And obviously
Ye-
that's a pretty popular destination.
Yeah, and that was part of what I was highlighting before is that, you know, we need to make sure that the numbers work. I actually took that service. I think it's been 2 months ago now, and it was a great way to really get over to South Lake Tahoe. So I can see the appeal of the service. That one is one of the few that we actually have as a reserved service. So you can actually see the level of how busy that bus connection is. It's been on order like 50% capacity. So I think if it starts getting to the point that it's starting to get pretty full on average, then we can start looking at adding that service frequency similar to what we did at Reno. So that is something that we're watching, and then we'll work directly with our partners at El Dorado Transit to see how we can be able to do that. So I guess in short, the answer is yes, we can do that. It's just a matter of making sure, again, funding resources and looking at what our ridership looks like on that bus and if it all makes sense.
Great, thank you, Leo. The next question is, what's the status of the proposed South Bay Connect shift to the Coast subdivision? I think you kind of touched a little bit on some of these projects, Rob, but the attendee says that they live in one of the Ardenwood neighborhoods that would be adversely affected if the service shifted, but has never received direct outreach from Kaplan Quarter to be in the loop, has registered for email updates but not received one yet. What can be done to help residents who would be negatively impacted to be aware of the status and how to give their feedback? I am on I'm kept in the loop about the outreach team activities for South Bay Connect. So I know that they're gearing up to do more outreach in the coming months. So if you've put your name in for some of those, you'll probably start to get emails and see more outreach about that. And we also post about any South Bay Connect news that we have, because that's part of what we're doing to make sure that the outreach gets out there. I don't know if Rob, if you wanted to add anything more on that.
Yeah, I did confirm with our project manager for that they have been quiet since last summer. They're working through a lot of details with Union Pacific and then the environmental work. So you have not missed any emails, and Priscilla's right. They are gearing up to start getting out there a little bit more. So I'm hoping you'll see something soon. And if you want to show that next slide, we can, for those who aren't familiar with the project, we can just show you where that is. I think that's on here. So yeah, down south, there's a section that we currently run through Hayward and Fremont, Centerville, which would shift over to the Coast subdivision with a new rail stop at the Ardenwood Park and Ride lot, for those of you who are familiar with that, where you could make a connection to either the employer shuttles or other bus services that serve that park and ride lot today.
Okay, let's see. One of the next questions here is talking about these projects right here, the third main track to Roseville, speeding up service between Oakland and San Jose. How does the split trackage in Auburn affect future multiple frequency increases?
Yeah, so the intent at this point is to continue with just a single round trip between Auburn and Roseville, but south of Roseville, in an agreement with Union Pacific, we will be adding a third track from Roseville down to Sacramento in 2 phases. So the first phase of that, which we're really near final design on, and we're waiting for just one last piece of federal grant to have it fully funded. That would extend it for, I believe, about 7 or 8 miles, and that would allow us to go to 3 round trips. And then once we get a third track all the way down to Sacramento, that would allow us to go to 10 round trips. That section, around Roseville and Sacramento has a lot of freight traffic. So to be able to provide more passenger rail service, we would need to do that. And then the other question was about just the travel time between Oakland and San Jose. I think that was the answer. The question was about that. I'll answer that in a couple ways. One of the things that we're really having a lot of trouble with is reliability of service. For those who are riders there, you know that we've had a really tough time with vehicles on the track. We have a lot of abandoned vehicles that are part there. There's a lot of really good work going on. Alameda County Transportation Commission is leading a lot of stuff at grade crossings through there. I would say one of the things that I think in the relatively short time frame, we're going to see some real improvements in securing the right-of-way so that we're going to have fewer incidents that delay service out of there. My hope is also that with South Bay Connect, and the intent is with South Bay Connect to shave about 13 minutes off the travel time. It's just a more direct service, and it doesn't have to go through some of the slower segments that we currently operate through, especially around Fremont. Some of those connections are a little bit on the slow side, but we're always looking for other places too to improve things.
Great, thank you. Let's see, I think that there's mention here about the quality of the tracks and maintenance. So I don't know if you actually have talked about that already or not.
I'm gonna, is that maybe talk about the trucks, Leo? It's probably a good thing to talk about.
We can touch on both. Let's just talk
Okay.
about track and then we can talk about the trucks.
Great.
So in terms of track maintenance, one of the things that we do actually every year is that our chief engineer, which we actually have another engineer person on staff, and we're excited about that area of expertise growing, works directly with Union Pacific on what we call a minor capital program that he manages. And what we're able to do is actually have regular maintenance that happens on our route. So this happens all throughout the year. We have crews that are out there either during the day, depending on the segment of track, inspecting, doing their ride along to high rail. I was trying to pick up on the word high rail inspection on the tracks, and that happens all the time. And usually early in the year, this year it was really March was when most of it happened. Some of you may have seen and experienced some slow orders, much of those in the Sassoon Fairfield area, because that was an area of specific work that was happening by Union Pacific that to really improve the rail and tie conditions. And so that has been completed, and that area is looking much better and working a lot better. And so that's one on the rail infrastructure side, and that happens, like I said, all the time. We have another project that will kick off, I believe, at the end of the year or start of next year, and that one's actually replacing the ties over the rail bridge that you guys see while you're going over from Martinez over to Sassoon. And so that work will be happening, and we'll be making sure to keep everybody posted, because it does create some slow orders, which means that the trains need to operate at slower speeds while they're going through there because the work is happening. But it means improved reliability and just a better rail experience. That's on the infrastructure side. And in order to really be able to have a comfortable ride, you need more than just great track infrastructure. And the other thing that you need is you need great rail equipment. One of the projects that we've been pushing for a while is the truck overhaul project. So the trucks of the cars are essentially the suspension, right? When you don't have good suspension on your car, it's the same thing on the rail equipment. You don't have a comfortable ride. You feel bumpy ride. And so we want to address that. That is going to be led by our partners at San Joaquin. They actually just finally signed the agreement, and we're excited that they're going to be able to get that going. And we're going to be working directly with them every step of the way to make sure that we give them the equipment. And again, this does limit our ability to have the added equipment, but we know that this is an important thing that we need to do to offer a comfortable ride, but also to have a safe ride, right? We need to get the equipment maintained regularly. And so this is going to be a great way that we improve the overall comfort and experience of our riders.
And Leo, what's the ballpark time frame for the replacement of the trucks on our?
So the full project should take about 10 months. So if we are able to start this summer, I would expect that by early next year, all of the cars should have gone through the program, and we should have a really enjoyable service.
Great, thank you. And I think the last question here asks about the vehicles that are getting stuck on the tracks, and that it seems to be happening in the Oakland area, as we're very familiar with. I see the mention about the Google mapping error, so we'll look into that for sure. But maybe Rob and Leo, if you could talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of rail safety and trying to keep the tracks clear and working with our partners on that.
Yeah, and I can start on that, and then Rob, if you want to add anything, you can. And Mary, thank you for your question. You're very perceptive, and I think you have exactly the right idea in terms of what's going on. So we've been doing a lot of work in really digesting all the data that we have and we know that is out there for everything from vehicles on track, vehicle strikes, pedestrian strikes, unfortunately. And thinking about how can we address the issue, right? But it starts with knowing what are the root areas that are that we're seeing the most issues, and unfortunately, the area that you highlighted, Oakland, is a high contributor to the total number of vehicle on track issues. So we analyzed data going back, I believe it was a total of 5 years. And when you looked at the entire picture, 70% of all the vehicle on track issues were unfortunately occurring in the city of Oakland. So that is something that we've shared with them. We're working directly with them, with other stakeholders. This is a problem that's bigger than just the railroad, that's bigger than just the city of Oakland. And we've actually taken the step of soliciting help from the FRA. We're going to be putting on a big workshop to involve all the appropriate stakeholders later this year. And that way we can really highlight that problem that we're seeing. I believe that we have one of the bigger hotspot areas in the whole country. This is probably number 2 only to LA area. And so this is one of the biggest issues that we see, and it really has degraded our on-time performance. So the biggest culprit for our degraded service has been these third-party issues is the category that we loop them in, and that's both the vehicle issues, both strikes and on tracks, and then the trespasser issues. So they have been increasing, unfortunately, over the last few years. Really started right at the tail end of 2019, and then really ramped up throughout the pandemic. We've been continuing to work directly with Union Pacific, just like we have a minor capital program with them. We also have a right-of-way program where we think of different initiatives that we can do to improve the safety along the corridor. And so some of those things are taking hold and they're picking up momentum, but we just need to do more, and we need more partners to continue to help us. So you'll see more on this improving the right-of-way safety issues, but we are mindful that there's a big problem there, and especially in Oakland. Rob?
And then I wanted to add one other comment. In addition to the physical improvements that we are hoping to see in a lot of our corridor to secure the right of way, we also fund stuff. The Capital Corridor Board has funded a right of way program, including a 5-year commitment to Union Pacific to fund 2 Union Pacific patrol officers that will only serve our territory. And the idea behind these patrol officers is to just try to prevent things from happening. We're not trying to be difficult, but we want to keep people safe and off the corridor. And sometimes you do see encampments along the corridor, which can result in fatalities, unfortunately, sometimes, but also trackside fires can sometimes happen. And so with these new patrol officers, we're hoping we can encourage folks to be in a safer spot, but then also the patrol officer can help deal with something. So if there's a vehicle strike, they can be on scene quicker. So we're dealing with it both with physical improvements and maintenance, but also with staff on the ground, because we do think this is probably, honestly, the most important issue for Capital Corridor. There's no point in adding capacity if we can't address this ongoing challenge that we see. And appreciate the question. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, great. There's 2 more questions. I think we've got about 7 minutes left in our session today. Let's see, Dan Allison looks like he has a follow-up on ride quality, mentioning that on several sections, the ride has been worse after UP maintenance than before. So rail trucks are only part of the explanation. So maybe that's something to look into. And if there's, Dan, if you have specific sections that you know of, that would be really helpful to let us know about which sections those are. And maybe we can, get a team out there to look at it or something.
Yeah, definitely let us know, and we can definitely follow up with that and see what we're seeing.
And let's see, the last question we've got in here is from Paul. Director Paget, thank you for the presentation today. Can you provide an update on the rider request for a CCJPA Rider Advisory Committee?
Thanks, Paul. And for those who might know Paul, he's been a big advocate for this, and appreciate the feedback, Paul. So we have been talking to an external organization about organizing a group to provide rider feedback to Capitol Corridor. One thing I will say is that we have unfortunately had to suspend, because of the pandemic, a lot of the ways that we historically have gotten rider feedback. And some of that is through the annual business plan process. We used to have many of our public meetings on the train. We would actually have them in a car and we would do a presentation. And that was a great way to connect with people who maybe don't have time to join a Zoom call, or there wasn't Zoom back then. But so we did that. And then we would also do the Cappy hours, which was usually we'd staff those. And so at those meetings, almost always you would hear feedback from people. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, those two avenues of communication have just not been there. And then the other thing, and so we're working on that, as Priscilla said, and her team's really at the edge of this. They appreciate all their support. They're working on revamping and pushing those out again. I think we've had one already. So that's one thing that's going to be different. So there will be more feedback opportunities for everybody. We're also now going to do these quarterly conversations with folks, and we really want people to provide feedback through this forum, verbal, text, or whatever, however you want to engage with us on this. My goal is to get as much feedback as we can. The one thing, and Paul's aware of this, we are a super small agency, so I think you got like 25% of the team here today. And I want to make sure that if we start this rider advisory committee, even if it's done by an external party, that I can make sure my team is able to appropriately staff that exercise. So we have not lost the idea, and we're working on it. But as we're continuing to work on that, I would ask you to keep engaged with us. And then as you will see on our website, we have a link there to provide feedback. We look at that every single time. Everything we get, we send it. We have a whole system in place that sends that to the right person. But if it's something more general, like a schedule idea or something like that, we keep all that stuff. So if you're riding the train home one day and you think about something you want to share, please go on there. We value that feedback, and we've learned tons from our customers over the years. When we hear it from several people at the same time, then we know something's going on, and it helps us keep our eyes out on the railroad. Thanks, Paul. See, Paul wrote another comment today.
Oh, looks like we've got one more question. The state rail plan mentions moving the F-59 to T3 or close to T4. Is that the change to renewable diesel or other modifications planned as well?
Yeah. You want to do this one, Leo?
Yeah, I can address that. So one of the items that we've all been focused on, and really this is through the state governor's directive, is get closer to zero emissions and eventually get to zero emissions. And one of the things that we're doing is a variety of a variety of things to improve the running condition of our locomotives. So that's everything from making sure that they're operating in the condition that they should be. And then the other thing is, making sure that when we have the opportunity to improve the tier of a locomotive, that we capitalize on that, and we do that. Right now, the state has gone after some funding to specifically overhaul the F-59 locomotives. So the majority of our locomotives are Charger locomotives, which are tier 4. and those are the cleanest burning diesel burning locomotives that are available in the world, really. And the F-59s are a tier 2, so they're not as effective as the tier 4s. And so in this overhaul project, part of that is to also improve the tier, and we're unsure if we'll really be able to get to the tier 4 based on some demonstrations that have been done, but the overall result should either be a tier 3 or a tier 4, just depending on where some of the research and work takes us. But eventually, we want to do more than just burning better fuel. We've transitioned to renewable diesel. That was a longstanding goal that we've had. We've had a lot of people that have been working on that project. So that was the next step. And then next, even beyond that, is then looking at the future state of equipment, and that's a zero emission fleet, which right now the most promising technology looks to be hydrogen fuel. And as those developments come up, we want to give you that information. We want to let you know what that is and what it can mean for our service. Rob and I have been really pursuing that and really supporting that initiative. We think it's something important for our service, for our riders, and for our community.
And you'll definitely hear as this technology develops, you're going to hear it on these forums. We're going to keep you posted, because I know in California there's tons of support for moving to zero emissions. We used up the whole hour.
Right. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised. We used a full hour. They had some really great questions.
Yes.
Thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. And we will post this recording on our YouTube channel, so you can look for us there. I'm not sure when we'll get to that, but hopefully by the beginning of next week. And once again, if you want to stay connected with us, we do regularly update our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter with updates, as well as on our LinkedIn. So please follow us and stay in touch. I think that we have had the feedback link shared in the chat. So please, bookmark that if you have any comments you'd like to send to us, and any ideas you might have for future quarter conversations. And by the way, we have $5 margaritas for the month of May on board. So I hope that you all enjoy that. We're going to be bringing some new drink specials for the summer. So keep an eye on that as well. And did you have anything else you want to add? Okay.
No, just thanks for everybody's time today. We really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. I'm going to
Bye-bye.
go ahead
Thank
and
you.
end the meeting today. Thank you.